Author Harlan Ellison and Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator credit. Getty. On a bright Los Angeles morning in 1964, the esteemed science fiction writer Harlan Ellison clambered onto a long boardroom table, ran its length and skidded, legs first, into the shocked executive at the other end. As the assembled TV network functionaries leaped to their feet, gasping, his victim spun backwards out of his chair, into a wall. He limped away with a broken pelvis, and probably considered himself lucky. It was just another day in the life of Ellison, who passed away on Thursday aged 84. Notoriously combative, the archetypal fusebox who would start an argument with himself if no other alternative presented itself, had seen red. When ABC network head Irwin Allen suggested some mild edits to his script for an episode of the sci-fi series Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Today, a disgruntled writer might go rogue by ranting on Twitter or posting something unkind on Facebook. Ellison, having no such option, took the more direct route. Head skidded down the table, smacking into the gobsmacked Irwin. This in turn dislodged a scale model of the Seaview submarine from Voyage, which slammed earthward into the ABC boss. Nobody who witnessed the incident recalls being the least surprised by Ellison's outburst, though this didn't prevent Irwin suing him and settling out of court. "I saw blood red," Ellison would remember. "I didn't want to have to go around anything, so I just took the straightest route, which was right down the middle of the table. I tagged him a good one right in the pudding trough and zappo, over he went, windmilling backwards, and fell down, hit the wall." And Irwin had this big, 6-foot-long model of the Seaview, which I guess they had used as a miniature on the series, and it came off its brackets and dropped on top of him and just busted this dude's pelvis. Harlan Ellison in 2012 credit. Steve Barb. There are many stories about Ellison, and a great deal of them involve him stomping, smacking, or otherwise assailing someone daring test his notoriously short temper. He denied having once pushed an overbearing fan down an elevator shaft and angrily decried claims of leaping on stage and groping sci-fi scribe Connie Willis at the 2006 Hugo's Genres Fiction answer to the Oscars. The incident is on YouTube, so you can judge for yourself, but he gladly admitted to feuding with Gene Roddenberry over changes to his script for the 1967 Star Trek episode City on the Edge of Forever, and to sending a dead gopher to the controller of a publishing house which had, in Ellison's view, broken its contract by binding a cigarette ad into one of his paperbacks. In addition to slap happy, Ellison was notoriously litigious and in 2011 made noises about taking to court the producers of In Time, a forgotten caper starring Justin Timberlake, Amanda Seyfried and Cillian Murphy. He backed down after he judged the film, which he had claimed drew on his 1965 tale Repent, Harlequin. Said the TikTok man, to be without redeeming qualities. Harlan Ellison's Star Trek episode, City on the Edge of Forever credit. UTB. However, of all the scrapes and standoffs in which he became involved, the most notorious, and the one of which he appeared almost proud, concerned his plagiarism lawsuit against James Cameron over the Terminator. "Harlan Ellison is a parasite who can kiss my ass," was Cameron's assessment of the disagreement, though he has claimed that a gag order has prevented him speaking freely on the subject. Very much speaking freely on the subject was Ellison, who asserted that Cameron had boasted in interviews of borrowing from Ellison and, in particular, his 1964 Outer Limits episode Soldier. The Ellison scripted Demon with a Glass Hand is often misidentified as the relevant installment, Ellison being Ellison. His version of events came with what in hindsight read like embellishments. He claimed that, because of similarities between the time travel plots of the Terminator and Soldier, Cameron and his producers declined to invite Ellison to the Terminator press screening. Consequently, had been required to sneak in, posing as assistant to the film critic Leonard Maltin. James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger on the set of Terminator 2, Judgment Day credit. Rex. But when Maltin, reminiscing about his friendship with Ellison after the writer's death, recalled the incident this week, his memories were rather different. As Maltin writes on his blog, "I will never, ever forget how I first met celebrated science fiction author Harlan Ellison. I was attending a morning showing of James Cameron's breakthrough movie The Terminator in 1984, and signing in with the publicist on duty. When Harlan heard me say my name, he approached me and offered a friendly hello. Then he told me why he was there. He had heard from reliable sources that the movie had taken key story ideas from his past work. The theater wasn't crowded, but we sat in separate rows, not far from each other. My experience watching this now famous movie was punctuated by Harlan's outbursts and expletives. Jesus Christ, I can't believe it and such. He later told me he intended to sue, a process that, I learned, was not uncommon to him, and sure enough, he won. The producers were forced to insert a credit for him in the closing crawl of the picture. Ellison insisted that he went to the screening hoping against hope that the Terminator owed nothing to Soldier. It was not my desire to find a similarity. I was sitting in there thinking, please don't let it be. But if you took the first 3 minutes of my Soldier episode and the first 3 minutes of the Terminator, they are not only similar but exact. By the time I left the theater, I knew I had a case against someone who plagiarized my work. The Terminator and Soldier unquestionably proceed along parallel tracks. In the first, a robot assassin from the far future is beamed back to 80s America on a mission to kill the mother of the as yet unborn savior of mankind. Also sent back, to stop him, is a soldier from the post-apocalyptic resistance. In Soldier, two in the far future are accidentally zapped into a temporal loop. One travels back in time where he is taken in by a family. The other eventually joins him there and his foe sacrifices himself to save his new acquaintances. Is the Terminator a straight rip-off? That would be a hard case to prove in court, though tonally they have lots in common. The far-flung hellscape depicted in the opening to the Soldier unquestionably feels of a piece with the flash-forward sequence in the Terminator in which we have a glimpse of a ruined Earth following the machine uprising. For this man fighting this war there is never total darkness, says the narrator. The spidery beams of light and sky are the descendants of the modern laser beam. This soldier must go against those weapons. He is a foot soldier, the ultimate infantryman. He has never knows loved a closeness or warmth. He is geared for only one purpose: to kill the enemy. Harlan Ellison in 1977 credit, Barbara Alper. Archive photos to the modern viewer. This reads as like a flowered-up version of Time Warrior Kyle's Reese's Don't You Get It? That's what he does, that's all he does. Speech in Terminator. The resemblances don't end there. He's born to be a killer, says one character of the eponymous Soldier later in The Outer Limits. He was born to be a killer. He was trained to be a killer. If Head hadn't found his way into our time, He'd die a killer. He doesn't understand hate or love or compassion. The extent to which this echoes the address by Kyle Reese Michael by N to Sarah Connor Linda Hamilton is striking. Listen, understand, that Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever, until you are dead. Ellison never actually sued and the standoff was settled out of court. Neither Cameron or Terminator producer Gale Ann Hurd have delved into the matter at any length, meaning the only detailed account have to go on is from Ellison. He stated baldly that Cameron was going around telling people that he'd taken direct inspiration from the writer. I got a call from the editor of Starlog magazine. It turned out Cameron had given an interview to Starlog, in which he said, "Oh, I took a couple of Outer Limits segments. At this point we went to Terminator financiers, Hemdale and to Orion, and we said, I'm afraid we got him with a smoking gun. Now do you want to do something about this, or do you want us to whip your ass in open court? We'd be perfectly happy to do it either way." They took one look at this and their attorneys said, settle. He elaborated in a separate interview that the payoff had been modest and that he could have squeezed more out of Cameron had he sued, and they settled with a substantial amount of money, not the kind of money I'd have gotten if I went to court. It was .65 or $75,000 with an additional $5,000 to be paid to be after a period of time that was stipulated in the contract if I did not speak of any of this. Linda Hamilton in The Terminator. Cameron, who was forced to give Ellison a credit, was never happy with how it all played out and felt let down by the studio and its backers. It was a nuisance suit that could easily have been fought. He was quoted in The Futurist, The Life and Films of James Cameron. Ellison wasn't alone in claiming Terminator was a knockoff. A second surreal litigation centered around a script written in the early 80s by writer Sophia Stewart and submitted for a comic book contest judged by the Wachowski siblings. She later asserted they had ripped off her story with The Matrix and went on to expand the lawsuit to include The Terminator, stating that the manuscript in question, called The Third Eye, was written between 1981 and 1983, though not submitted to the Wachowskis until 1986. How, many have wondered, would Cameron and his producers have got their mitts on unpublished screenplay by a budding writer nobody had heard of, and why wait until decades later before suing? The answers to those questions would appear to be lost in a temporal vortex. Regarding the Cameron v. Ellison standoff, one account by ex-Fangoria writer Mark Shapiro has it that Hemdale was willing to go to court to defend Cameron, with the caveat that, were he to lose, they would turn around and sue him for fraud, having passed off a plagiarized script as his own. Understandably, Cameron blanched and is reported to have said, "What it came down to was that I could risk getting completely wiped out, or I could wave it off and let this guy get his F_blank credit." By Shapiro's telling, the payoff was also substantially higher than Ellison's claimed $75,000, in the region of $400,000 or so. "I expected Hemdale and Orion to fight for my rights, but they abandoned me. The insurance company told me if I didn't agree to the settlement, they would come after me personally for the damages if they lost the suit. Having no money at the time, I had no choice but to agree to the settlement. Of course there was a gag order as well, so I couldn't tell this story, but now I frankly don't care."